Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Charity Charge Show. I am here today as a really special episode as I am about to go on paternity leave. Very excited about that. We really want to make sure that we continue to produce episodes of our show featuring advice, strategies to help nonprofit leaders. And so today, very excited to have with me Grayson Harris, who is going to be co-hosting today, and then also taking over for a handful of episodes along with some other folks on the team for the Charity Charge show. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode. For today, I'm excited to have as our guest Krista Lamp, who is the Senior Director of Nonprofit Communications for GoFundMe. Krista, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Stephen. And I feel so honored. I'm the first guest with the 2-for-1 host. So
You
I
got
feel
it.
very
Yeah,
honored to be here.
it's big. We were really excited to be doing more and more of these. We started this podcast back in 2018 or 2019 and then re-energized it a few months ago. And this is a good transition as we've grown Charity Charge, and I gotta look after something else other than just Charity Charge now. So we want to keep this going on.
You have another
Um,
baby coming then, huh? Right?
exactly. Another baby. Krista, first, what I just wanted to say to you, this is really cool. Because back in the day, I think it would have been 2019, I moderated a panel for the Classy Collaborative Conference.
That was even before my time. So yeah, that in Boston, I'm guessing.
That's right. Yep. It was a ton of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. I always thought you guys, Classy had a really great culture. And I understand, as part of this, Classy was acquired by GoFundMe, and now it's operating and expanded as GoFundMe Pro. Is that right?
That is correct. He was acquired by GoFundMe in 2022. So 2022, just a few months ago in May of 2025, we officially brought all of our nonprofit offerings together under one brand, GoFundMe Pro. Those that are interested in learning more about GoFundMe Pro, it's basically all the same incredible software you know and love from Classy, as well as tools for nonprofits that we've actually built on the consumer platform, on the consumer GoFundMe platform that so many people are familiar with. So we're really looking for ways to connect nonprofits even more within that consumer GoFundMe ecosystem and make sure they could tap into all the goodness happening over there.
Cool. So I'm curious if we work with thousands of nonprofits, and if they're listening to this, I always think about GoFundMe, as an individual, and
Mhm.
I would just say first and foremost, we contributed to some campaigns that have been going on. We're in Austin, Texas, and we had horrible floods
Mhm.
in and around the area and in Kerr County. And so GoFundMe, over the years has been incredible to use as a platform for that. But talk us through, if someone who's a nonprofit's listening to this, in what ways does GoFundMe Pro and some of the collaborations between the traditional GoFundMe platform help a nonprofit? I mean, what kind of problems would it be solving if a nonprofit executive director or board member is listening to this?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, your perception, Stephen, of GoFundMe is really similar to so many. It's like we know the platform. The platform has been a leading, platform of driving individual and nonprofit giving for over 15 years. I think what some of us in the philanthropic space don't realize is that it's organically become this place for nonprofits as well. So you might be surprised to know that in 2024, 65,000 nonprofits organically received support on GoFundMe on the consumer platform. So we know that people are naturally going there, even though it's known as an individual platform, to support nonprofits. And so a little light bulb went off in our head and said, that is a huge opportunity for us to really help nonprofits tap into that audience. We have a global community of over 200 million people that we believe really want to do good and support, whether it is something like the Texas flooding disaster or otherwise. And so we want to build those tools to be able for nonprofits to tap into that platform. So we, like I said, continue to have our really incredible like GoFundMe Pro software. So if a nonprofit wants to raise money through their own website, through an embedded donation form on their website, through their own live events, through their own peer-to-peer campaigns, we have all the software to allow your organization to do that. But what makes GoFundMe Pro so special is we also have the tools on the GoFundMe platform for nonprofits to be able to tap into new audiences there. So one of those tools is our GoFundMe nonprofit pages. So if you're a nonprofit listening, you can actually go claim your page completely for free. So go claim it. And what that lets you do is have this presence on GoFundMe. So you'll have a page, people can organically find you and discover you on the GoFundMe platform. So you can tap into that, organic interest that we know is coming to the GoFundMe platform. And then, in times of crisis, we can also help drive more eyeballs, to your organization, let's say. So I'll use Stephen, the Texas flooding disaster as an example. One, you called it out, but GoFundMe is really, really exceptional at responding to disasters. So we have people that are coming to support, maybe an individual who might have had flood damage to their home, but they also want to support nonprofits who are on the ground responding to the crisis. So, we spin up crisis hubs, which have verified individual fundraisers and also feature nonprofits that are responding. So, World Central Kitchen, Direct Relief, those are the type of organizations that were on the ground in Texas, as well as like Austin Pets Alive was on there helping,
Shout
some
out.
of the
Yeah.
Cool.
pets that were, needed homes or needed support. And so we're able to really elevate that visibility for nonprofits. And, we just launched a product called Giving Funds, which is our version of a DAF that we think can really make donor advised fund technology available to all. And what's so great about that is we really want to get the money out the door to the nonprofits who need it. So, for example, in the recent Texas flooding, you can go into your DAFT and you can obviously be served up organizations who are responding. So you see a news story, you're inspired to give to this disaster. You log into your DAF account on GoFundMe to your giving funds, and we are already pre-populating and sharing with you organizations that are responding. So it's really just helping that audience of 200 million on GoFundMe better find, connect, and fundraise for nonprofits on the consumer platform.
I think I have this is amazing. This is really cool. I'm gonna go deeper on why in
Yes,
a sec
please.
from my perspective and obviously hear from you. Grayson, did you have a question?
Something that we were looking into a bit of research and actually came out of another kind of podcast episode that we recorded. Giving this year obviously has been through a lot of kind of tumultuous times. There's a lot of
Yes.
kind of unknowns in the scene right now. And something that we saw coming out of the data is that monthly, consistent, small donations from individuals were kind of almost haven't really seen that fall off that some of the
Mhm.
other, especially coming from big grants that are kind of a bit unknown right now. Tapping into that community with LinkedIn, where you have those individuals that are the ones kind of holding steadfast in these uncertain times, has that kind of been a big positive impact on your community transitioning from Classy into that acquisition with GoFundMe Pro?
I think we've always seen recurring giving be huge for nonprofits, whether that's been, the 15 years of us just being a platform just for nonprofits, or whether it's like with our now GoFundMe Pro ecosystem post acquisition with GoFundMe. We have incredible organizations that use our software that see, sometimes upwards of 80% of their revenue coming through recurring giving. And I don't think that is an anomaly. We're not here to say that like recurring giving $20 a month is ever going to replace government funding. We know, that's not going to happen. That being said, the organizations we see prioritize recurring asks, engage recurring givers. You talk about community and wanting to feel a sense of belonging. Like that is 100% where fundraising is going. And we've seen organizations who can really make their recurring givers feel like part of a community, something more. The retention rates are exceptional, and we actually see that a recurring giving giver on our platform is worth 5 times more than just a one-time donation. So really, I think it depends on the moment your organization is in. Obviously, if you are responding to a crisis and you just need an influx in
Yeah, of capital.
high dollar donations because there's an extended need, then of course your ask might look a little bit different. But if you're looking for sustainable support, engaged communities, then I always tell nonprofits that they need to have a recurring plan and strategy.
And to break it down, I mean, Krista, I want to get back to get you to explain in detail
Mhm.
for nonprofit executive directors that are listening to this that maybe are either a combination of a few years into starting their nonprofit, okay, or or are under say 100,000, 500,000, or you probably know this, but 92% of nonprofits are under $1 million in revenue.
Yes. Yes.
So there are a lot of very, uh, I would call it extremely basic ways that a nonprofit can raise money, right? They could go and click some buttons on PayPal and set up a really basic way for someone to make a credit card donation or do a little ACH donation. The power when nonprofits consider platforms like a GoFundMe Pro, maybe even a Bloomerang, and others in there are these tools that enable the reoccurring giving, among other things. So just talk to us. Why is it so important for if it's an executive director here that's maybe only using some sort of software that's getting one-time donations? Why should they care about reoccurring giving?
Oh gosh. I mean, there's so many reasons why. I think, one, we talked about the ongoing engagement. Like the stats are astounding in the fact that the majority of donors to a nonprofit won't come back and give again, right? Like, could you imagine being a grocery store and having someone come in and buy a gallon of milk and then never come back and buy that gallon of milk from your shop ever again? And so, I think if you're looking at retention and stickiness, recurring giving is the way to go. Like I said, we have a lot of nonprofits on our platform who have a significant percentage of their donation volume coming from recurring giving. And that is not by chance. That is because it was a significant effort by those organizations to prioritize the recurring ask. So, in some cases, it's as little as $11. I'm going to use Tunnel to Towers as a good example here. Their recurring giving strategy is exceptional. Anyone who needs
They crush it. Wait, is this
they
the organization that now I'm on the spot. What's Dave Portnoy has I think supported them, and they've had a
that
lot of like
sounds
commercials and
right.
infomercials
They
as
do. They
well.
do
I
an
think Mark
incredible job.
Wahlberg as well. Yeah.
They're a definitely a celebrity favorite organization, but
Yeah.
the mission is so simple. So, they help first responders. They started as an organization coming off 9/11. They help first responders, military families, etc. And because of that connection to 9/11, their ask is $11 a month. Like it is tied to their mission. It is very simple. And it is the first thing you see. So the first
And it's
option,
what they focus on, which is so interesting. If
exactly.
you see these commercials that they've run on national television with, huge celebrities that are their partners and behind the mission, that is what the message is about, right? It's not,
Mhm.
hey, we're Tunnels to Towers, please donate $5,000, donate $1,000. It's a basic way to get people started. And on that, but what I don't want to gloss over is what the GoFundMe Pro has, which is really great, is just awesome tech to make it easy for nonprofits to be able to set that up in really probably a couple of clicks. And then I'm also curious, how would it work? Like if a nonprofit set it up, do they have an account manager? What if they have questions? I mean, how simple is it for someone that's running a nonprofit that doesn't really have they're going to know their mission and what they're trying to do in their community, but they might not have a technology background.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the way we've designed the software is it is easy to use. We're making it even easier to use. Like our new kind of really easy drag and drop platform is called Studio. So if you're a back end nonprofit and you don't have a lot of tech experience, it is a very like think of it as a Canva, like a very easy drag and drop tool. And then through that, we also are launching some templates and so for an org that doesn't even know where to start, there are certain organizations that have people that are familiar with code that want to do things very, very bespoke. But for those that don't, that just want it really simple, we have templates built in so people can go kind of see what we know is going to be successful, make some suggestions about photo goes here,
Mhm.
description text goes here, make sure you have some impact blocks that show, what your donation can do depending on the level of support. And then we also have artificial intelligence tools built in. So we have a tool called Intelligent Ask Amounts, which is really easy for an organization to toggle on. And we're actually making that technology even smarter. So we talked a little bit about, recurring versus one time. one, intelligent ask amounts can kind of see where someone is coming to a donation page and serve up the best ask for them based on their giving history and based on your goals as an organization. So let's
Wow.
say you do want to have one of those campaigns that fully prioritizes recurring giving. Intelligent ask amounts will know that, know the previous giving history, know where the person came from, and say, okay, this person should give $10 a month. Maybe the next person would get suggested $20 a month. So you're really optimizing based on the person, and it lets you do that personalization at scale. The same way that, like, we talked about disaster response, maybe an org just wants to bring in like as many dollars as they can because they have an urgent need. You can tell intelligent ask amounts that as well, and then they wouldn't prioritize for recurring. They would prioritize the ask for that one-time gift. Then maybe donors see something like a $50, $100, or $250, depending on their giving history. And so not only are we making it easy to build beautiful campaigns, we're actually helping you raise more based on the intelligence that's being built into the platform.
My mind is exploding right now. All right, I have a couple of follow up questions, at least one key one. Then Grayson's going to jump in. I do want to preface, just for anyone listening, we have never had sponsors of the Charity Charge podcast, so this is an authentic, real conversation. I think it's really cool. So, what I want you to talk about, Krista, is um, obviously, I mean, we covered the GoFundMe brand, but now for nonprofits that's interested, talk about. I mean, Classy had been crushing it. I mean, really was a leader. Can you whatever numbers come top of mind? But I mean, what might show some of the success and kind of the figures prior to this kind of transition into Classy being acquired and being a part of GoFundMe? How many nonprofits? How much money raised? Because obviously, you all with making these iterations and whatnot as part of the GoFundMe Pro now, Classy, you're already taking the best of what Classy had been doing for, well over a decade.
Exactly. Well, I can say our software tools alone have helped thousands of nonprofits. We have thousands of customers, from your big organizations like the Salvation Army down to more grassroots organizations using the software tools. I think what's great is now we've been this joint company for 3 years now. So, like I said, we were acquired in 2022, and while we just kind of made it official from a branding perspective a few months ago, we really have been building together. And so GoFundMe Pro and GoFundMe together have raised over $40 billion for individuals and nonprofits. So that's
That
like
was with a
40
B
with a
too.
B, with a B,
Yeah.
not an M. And so that is a ton of experience we have in helping to raise money for causes that people care about. And yes, a lot of that has taken place individual to individual on the consumer platform, but there's so much that nonprofits can learn from giving to individuals, how people want to engage with philanthropy that we're now taking and bringing into our ecosystem for nonprofits. Not to mention, I touched on artificial intelligence, but like artificial intelligence is only as good as your data. And because we have such a robust data set, very, very unique philanthropic data set, it just makes our tools even smarter.
That's amazing. I was actually about to kind of ask about that.
Yeah.
So I assume that that kind of influx of data from that partnership is one of the really big benefits that you're seeing from transitioning from being on your own with Classy into that GoFundMe Pro and that kind of combination there. I was wondering, on top of obviously having access to all of that past kind of knowledge of donation habits with GoFundMe, what is like a conversion kind of rate that you're seeing from people that are on there for that consumer giving side? They have a family member that's in a time of need that made a GoFundMe page. Now they're on the site, and maybe they're now looking and seeing other nonprofit campaigns. What kind of How are y'all seeing those two communities kind of interlap and
Yeah, it's a
transition?
really good question. And I transparently, I don't know that I have an exact number for you yet. I think we are still learning and experimenting and figuring out the best way for us to take what we're learning across the ecosystem and apply it. What I will say is, like I said, I already mentioned the fact that 65,000 nonprofits organically received a donation through GoFundMe. Like, that was really exciting to us because it showed the like organic interest in nonprofit
And
through that
demand.
platform. And now we're at this really exciting time where we get to figure out how to best make those connections. What I will say is, I think in times of crisis, we are seeing that interest. Like a lot of what we see in our sector, like it increases it. And so we are seeing a lot of success being able to spin up these crisis pages, really highlight organizations responding to a crisis. Similarly, with giving funds, having that as an additional vehicle to be able to do that. And I think we just want to learn even more. One thing we've really been digging into is social sharing. So I think we've talked a lot about like donations, giving dollars. But what we see is that there are other ways to actually raise money for your organization. And one of these is with sharing. So we actually released some findings last fall that talk about the fact that Gen Z is sharing organically causes they care about once a week. So they are talking about this stuff online, like who they give to and who they want to support is part of their self identity. And it's not just reserved for Gen Z. We're actually seeing millennials share about once a month as well. And so a lot of the behavior that we see really innate in the consumer platform, like sharing, we actually don't see as innate in our behavior specific to nonprofits. And that is a huge missed
Well, it's
opportunity.
yeah, this is really exciting. I think it's also that it hasn't really been a core, well, I say a core capability or really understanding of traditional B2B SaaS nonprofit fundraising services. And so I think that based on what we're learning today, what's really cool and unique about the GoFundMe Pro is one, being able to take, as you're just talking about, the best practices and all the tech, and because that's what's been incredible about GoFundMe is this organic viral nature of someone creates a fundraiser and then the ability for it to be able to be shared out across social media and other platforms. I mean, I don't have to explain that, but GoFundMe has
Exactly.
absolutely crushed it in terms of I could call it like the gamification, but figuring out ways to get people to share it and bring back in that feedback loop to
Hmm.
get more and more people giving. So I think one, that's incredible that this kind of merger of like bringing in the initial all the know-how of Classy on the B2B fundraising side can tap into that on the consumer side. The other piece, which I think is critical and very unique and very cool, is what you talked about that it approximately, correct me if I'm wrong, but over the years on the just traditional GoFundMe side, GoFundMe has seen about 200 million unique individuals give, right?
Hmm.
The
Yes.
fundraisers or whatever, campaigns had been created on that platform. And so as much as reoccurring giving is so important for nonprofits, what is critical with that as well is attracting new donors. So if you're an executive director, a board member, you're thinking of starting a new nonprofit, the only way you get money is from people. Well, you need to have
Yes.
people aware, right? And so we just had like our most recent podcast episode that was published was with the founder and executive director of Surge for Water. Okay, Shilpa started it as an idea, so there's $0 in revenue. 10 plus years later, they're doing 1.7 million, which is just incredible. Again, we talk about the statistic 92% of nonprofits are under $1 million in revenue. They're now almost at 2 million in revenue. And so I asked her, I said, what did you do to get your first $100,000? And that really was like, it was the hardest part. And she reached out to her personal network, okay? And she got close supporters. And some people said yes, and some people said no. But that is a huge challenge that we have all these problems that are facing, in our local communities, our
Hmm.
country, global issues. People are passionate about starting an organization, but it's all about being able to find and get new donors. And that donor acquisition piece, and I'm kind of talking now in a bit of businessy or technical terms, can be extremely time consuming and it's really expensive, right? You want to do incredible work, but if people don't know that you are here to support to do that. So now I'm going on and on. Explain then again, you have access, you already have this community of people. So talk
Exactly.
about that just a little bit more because that is a huge, huge differentiator with
Well, I
GoFundMe
mean,
Pro.
that's the whole reason we came together, right,
Yes.
Stephen? Like we saw this opportunity. and I'm going to kind of go, I'm going to talk about it in an example. So we know that a lot of people turn to GoFundMe to raise money for their friends and neighbors, often who potentially have a disease or have some hospital bills. And so let's say Stephen is giving to his friend because, Stephen's friend has cancer. And you're going to give so that, your friend can ensure that they can pay their hospital bills and they're out of work and all of these things. That is amazing. And now, Stephen, you feel really passionate about the cause of cancer. You are now have a personal connection. You are now entrenched. You don't want anybody else to feel the way your friend has ever felt. And so, wouldn't you like to know about the incredible work of the American Cancer Society and everything they're doing to, help cure cancer, look for a cure, to help those affected by cancer? Like that feels like such an entry point to philanthropy. And so what we believe is once you get people kind of, I'll call this in the web of philanthropy, right? Once we get them giving and entrenched in a cause, there are so many ways we can ask them then to take that newfound passion and turn it into something, whether it's a donation to the American Cancer Society, whether it's, hey, just share more about what the American Cancer Society is doing. Like there's so many ways to get them engaged. And so, going back to your original question about donor acquisition, like that was kind of the scenario we saw when we came together. And the fact that GoFundMe has this community of 200 million that is so passionate and excited and rallying around people and causes. And we believe they would want to know about your organization if we can help introduce them to you. And so that is where we are trying to really build out these tools on the consumer platform. I said it before, but like if you are a nonprofit and you haven't gone and claimed your nonprofit page on GoFundMe, that is your first step. Like being there and being visible. And it doesn't mean you abandon everything else that you're doing. It's like it's a both and. It's a plus up to your strategy to say continue your tried and true fundraising methods and go claim your page because we think there's a
And
community over
Krista,
here
I'm
that can search. I
sharing the
see.
screen
Yeah.
now. I'm on GoFundMe. So where would a nonprofit go to claim their page? What would be the
Yes.
first step?
So actually, if you go, I'll show you kind of the search and discovery. If you go to GoFundMe.com, so right now you are on our wonderful
Mhm.
GoFundMe Pro website, which is incredible, but this is actually hosted on the consumer platform. And so if you go, I'll show your audience the search and discoverability. So you can go right up there into the search bar in your top, kind of your top left right there for nonprofits. And so we've already starting to build in these really organic tools for people to search nonprofits. So if you can start typing in the search bar
Awesome.
cancer and then look at nonprofits and have all those. But if you are a nonprofit who would like to figure out how to claim your page, you can start. Now I'm going to take you back. You can start by going to the GoFundMe Pro website and going to GoFundMe dash nonprofits. And so that will help you claim your page and make sure
Am
that
I
you are
in?
taking all the steps.
I'm back on. What did you want me to go back to GoFundMePro.com?
Yes, we can go
Okay.
there. You can do it through both. And of
Okay.
course,
Either which
putting me
way.
on the spot right here, but let
That's
me
okay.
see.
I'm sure
I
people want
can,
to know.
yeah, I
We'll
can
find it.
also send you, let me see. If this is helpful, I can drop this in so you can pull up this specific web
Yep.
page.
Let
Let me
me
see.
go
Uh,
back.
there we go. Right. I'm just going to drop this in the chat right here. Do we have chat in this ability for us?
Yeah, it's gonna be on the right. It
Yeah.
says
Why won't it let
You
me
see on the
drop
far
in?
right under chat.
There we go. Okay. So here's this web page. So you go to
Okay.
pro.gofundme.com. This is a long one. So it's like slash solution slash, and then you can see right there, you can start your journey by clicking on claim your nonprofit page.
So
And
we'll
so
put this
what you
in
will
our show notes and in our blog too.
thank you so
Cool.
much. So what you can do from there is it'll
Claim
redirect
my
you to your.
nonprofit page.
Yeah, and then you put in the nonprofit you work for. There are gonna be
Got
a
it.
couple of steps because we obviously have to verify that you actually work for the nonprofit you say you do, and then we can get you admin access. And what's exciting about this is, one, you can now have access to all the donors that are giving to you organically through the GoFundMe platform. If you're a GoFundMe Pro customer as well, all of this information will flow into your GoFundMe Pro backend. So you'll be able to see what donors are coming to you through the GoFundMe consumer platform. And all of it is just a nice, easy way to be able to get all the donor data so you can start to nurture those donors that might have organically found you. And, you talk about acquisition. Acquisition is so important, but we already talked about retention. So we want to make sure we're giving nonprofits the ability to actually nurture and retain those donors as well. And then the other exciting part about claiming your nonprofit page on GoFundMe is I mentioned our new donor advised fund product, Giving Funds. Anyone who gives to you through their giving fund, so through their DAF product on GoFundMe, you'll also be able to download their information, provided they're okay with us sharing it with you. You'll also be able to see all the donors that are giving to you through giving funds as well.
Amazing.
That's amazing. So I have a couple questions. Y'all mentioned kind of reaching the consumer. How are y'all going about doing that? So if someone comes on, they do that individual contribution. You know that they have that intent. They have that fire in their belly to fight cancer for their friends' behalf. How are you then reaching that consumer? Is it on the site itself? Are y'all reaching out to them through like emails? And then
Yeah.
also, as you are coming in, here you can go ahead and answer that one, and I'll follow up.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it's a lot of different ways. So you've seen the search and discovery tools already that we provide through the platform, hopefully making it really easy for people to find nonprofits that support a cause they might care about. We're also doing quite a few. The good thing about obviously having this joint ecosystem is that we have an incredible marketing engine. So one, we are doing a lot of great things where we're looking at what our donors on GoFundMe have given to in the past, and then sending out some bespoke emails that might encourage them to give to a nonprofit. A recent experiment we did during Pride Month was driving people who have given to LGBTQ plus causes on the GoFundMe platform, introducing them to the Trevor Project and the incredible work they are doing. So we were able to send some emails sharing with them that they can give to the Trevor Project or start a fundraiser on behalf of the Trevor Project, which again is another incredible donor acquisition tool. Like we know that 4 out of 5 donors who give to a peer-to-peer campaign are new to that organization. And so you want to talk about donor acquisition. If you're not doing peer-to-peer campaigns, you're missing the ability. And then we also have a really robust influencer and creator program that is always helping introduce our audience to new and exciting causes. So, she might be polarizing. Some people love her, some people don't, but I'm going to use Paris Hilton as an incredible example. She really stepped up after the LA wildfires in January and supported a ton of amazing nonprofit organizations. One of them being the Pasadena Humane Society, who took in so many um, pets that were lost, helped reconnect them with families. And Paris was really showing up for them. And so she was talking very loudly about all the work that Pasadena Humane was doing. And then GoFundMe has also introduced these tools called profiles, where Paris can have her own profile on the GoFundMe platform and she can elevate the nonprofit she supports. So let's say you're a big Paris Hilton fan, you can go look at her profile, see the nonprofits that Paris has been giving to, and say, you know what, that's incredible. I want to give to the Pasadena Humane Society too. So again, we're just building a lot of these tools for connection. What we found is that, you know, the way we're kind of engaging with philanthropy is changing. Like we've always known that peer-to-peer giving is a really, really powerful tool. And so now we're just helping it make it even easier for people to kind of evangelize on your behalf and like create these philanthropic profiles that people can find and discover causes because they know, Steven is really entrenched in the nonprofit sector and he would have great recommendations. I'm going to go to Steven's profile and see who he might give to. So we're
And that
hoping
trust.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, it's less us and more your networks being able to connect with each other around causes. Because yes, we have incredible, resources and marketing, but we really believe that the way you connect is through those personal connections.
Krista,
Amazing.
just to make sure I had the organization, was it the Pasadena Humane Foundation that you mentioned?
I
Or
believe they're just
society?
called, I think I said society. They're just called Pasadena Humane.
Okay. So this is a question. So because when we first started talking about this, you mentioned, and again, I know these were examples, but you mentioned American Cancer Society,
Mhm.
then you mentioned the Trevor Project, right? When I think of those are, I mean, some of the biggest brand names in the nonprofit world, right?
Yep.
We talked about how 92% of nonprofits are under a million in revenue, doing incredible work, right? And because of that, those organizations, a lot of times the mindset of the executive director, it's frustrating because they're trying to get funding, they're trying to get support, but they have these behemoth nonprofit organizations that it's really hard to compete against. And that is what it is. That's just the nature of it. And all these organizations are trying to vie for funding and resources. So I love that you talked about the Pasadena Humane because that's more of a local organization, albeit they had, a major celebrity influencer in Paris Hilton. So with that kind of setup, if if an executive director is listening to this and they are part of that 92%, they're under a million, how can this and would this benefit their local organization to be able to
Yeah,
acquire? Yeah,
no, it's a great call out because you're right. I did use some, pretty big organizations. I'm going to share another. I think the best way to talk about some of this stuff is
awesome.
through examples. And so I'm going to share,
You're doing
a
great. I think we're all doing great. But what we try to do here is just have as a real and authentic as a conversation as possible. So thank you so much for
yeah.
just answering these questions and being willing to, uh, you know, go
Sit
along with it.
yeah, sit in the
No,
hot seat.
of
Yeah,
course. So I'm gonna use an example, from an organization called Cure Sanfilippo. And so, Sanfilippo is a very, very, rare medical condition. As you can imagine, because of the rareness of the medical condition, this isn't like a well-known, disease like cancer. You really only are connected with this if you do have that personal connection. And so as we were kind of digging into some of these organizations like that, aren't these like multi-million dollar big enterprise organizations and seeing how they could really utilize our technology. We dug into how an org like this might be able to use those nonprofit pages we've talked about. So, again, free tool. And what we found is that Cure Sanfilippo was actually strategically using the GoFundMe platform. They had claimed their page. They were asking people to fundraise on their behalf on the GoFundMe platform because they knew that it was a really familiar platform for donors to come and want to raise money for diseases and medical emergencies. And so they actually created. They had 13 GoFundMe campaigns that they organically found had been started for their organization, which, again, not like a massive number, but once they claimed their page, they realized they had 13 people that were raising money for them that they didn't know about before. And those 13 campaigns actually raised over $3 million for their organization. And they found this all out just because they were, looking for that donor acquisition strategy that was happening through the GoFundMe platform. So again, now they have 13 people in their ecosystem that they didn't know about before that they can nurture through their marketing, that they can share updates with, that they could thank. Like before, they weren't even able to thank these donors. So, or these fundraisers, I should say. So that's just an example. I would say that's probably a smaller, more unknown organization, and who is really able to use the tools that we have on GoFundMe to their advantage.
awesome. And when I was looking through, I appreciate you pointing that out. I don't want to gloss over that. Thank you for doing that. And that's really cool that organizations that would be $10,000 in revenue, $50,000 in revenue, 100,000, 250, $500,000 in revenue can take advantage of this. When I was scrolling through your site, I noticed that, on the FAQ, there was a question about what does it cost? And my understanding is to claim the page, it's free. The costs really and the revenue model for GoFundMe Pro would primarily be through just whatever those credit card processing fees are, correct?
Yeah, so we have it gets a little nuanced. So if we're talking about the consumer platform and you're a nonprofit with your GoFundMe page, it is just a simple, like you said, transaction fee which covers the cost of our payment
Yeah.
processor. So
And
it's
nonprofits are
2.2%.
Yeah, and nonprofits are really used to that. I mean, that's what we specialize in. We have a nonprofit credit card
Yeah.
program for nonprofits. It's awesome. Encourage people to check it out. Little plug there. Um, but that makes sense. I mean, behind every credit card transaction, whether you're in Walmart and you're buying something for $100,
Exactly.
they're paying a merchant fee. So whoever's collecting the money is going to receive some percent less. So you were saying the percent is about
Yeah, the percent for
2.2%?
nonprofits is 2.2% plus 30 cents per
Got it.
transaction. So it's really low. And then like
That's
everything.
really, really and it starts at that?
That is for GoFundMe, the consumer platform. So
Awesome.
any
Yeah.
donation you receive through that GoFundMe nonprofit page, which is free, that is
That's
what you pay.
and I've seen it just be egregious. I mean, I've seen nonprofits get charged 5, 6, 7, 8, 9%. So
Yeah, I
awesome.
think the nuance of it is if you are also using in tandem our software,
Yes.
all of that is bespoke pricing to your organization. So it
Right.
really does depend on what is the size of the organization, how much donation volume are you driving, and then there we have a combination of like subscription fee and transaction fee,
Yeah.
all based on your bespoke
Which is
needs.
really
But
normal. So there's gonna
mhm,
be if they're taking advantage of all the GoFundMe Pro to have the website and the power of the reoccurring and all
exactly,
these fancy bells and whistles, it's sort of gonna function like a lot of software does today.
exactly.
Even I mean, a little bit different, but if I think about, a lot of nonprofits are using QuickBooks. They're paying a monthly or maybe an annual fee to QuickBooks to use that software. It's gonna be a similar type of, cost or fee,
Yeah, I mean,
or
I'm not
business model
familiar with
rather.
QuickBooks itself, but
Right, but
yes,
it's just
yeah,
the idea that
it's very natural for
cloud
like a B2B
software,
SaaS company,
people
yes.
are used or Zoom, you're gonna pay for a subscription for it, so it's kind of a
Exactly.
similar
But if you
concept there.
wanted to do nothing else but claim your nonprofit page, any donation facilitated through that is that 2.2% plus 30 cents. What I will also add is with our new Giving Funds products. So through DAF Giving, nonprofits get 100% of that. So we are actually covering fees because we believe that donor advised funds are such an incredible tool and we want more people to start using them. Like traditionally, the average DAF, I think it's something like 1% of the US population uses DAFs and they're retired and wealthy. And we hope that we can expose this technology to more people. And so we're actually covering those fees in a lot of ways for the individual. And then nonprofits would receive 100% of the donation from giving funds if you did receive a donation to your nonprofit page in that way.
Yeah, and either way, the point remains true if you're not having any of the fees, but I would think on the DAF, you're able to not do that because individuals that are creating a DAF might be wire transferring or ACHing money that's being held in there. So it's
Yes.
basically you're bypassing,
So
the merchant
we're
processing.
covering all the ACH fees, and we're
Okay,
actually right now at launch, we're gonna be covering credit card fees through the end of the year as well. So if you ever thought about starting like a philanthropic savings account, go do it. Everything is waived for you. And then, like everything on the GoFundMe platform, if when the money is being granted out, or let's say you are donating to a nonprofit on the GoFundMe platform, there will be an option, a completely optional option, I should say, to make a tip and tip like GoFundMe. But other than that, our fees are very, very transparent.
That's
awesome.
amazing. I had a follow up on that DAF because I was doing a little bit of research going into it. And I know it's something that y'all are really excited about.
We
So,
are.
how are y'all seeing that transition from kind of taking this thing that's usually kind of seen, like you said, 1% of Americans
Mhm.
are using this, and taking the kind of that network of people on GoFundMe, and outside of kind of covering those transaction fees, how are y'all like getting people to transition into using the DAF? What is the
Yeah.
benefit as a consumer? Like if I want to go and I want to open up that, what are the benefits I'm seeing? And then outside of that free, um, the 100% of donations going to the nonprofit, what are the benefits that the nonprofits are
For
seeing
the
with that as
nonprofit? It's a
well?
great question. So, I think what is most exciting for me about giving funds is you don't have to know what a DAF is to use them. Like, the way I like to look at it is really just like a philanthropic savings account. So, what we know is that people actually really do like to plan for their giving. This is especially true of young people. So, Gen Z and millennials are more likely to actually account for philanthropic giving in their financial planning. And so, what we're really trying to do is provide a tool that allows them to do it very easily, very seamlessly on a platform that, you know, they're already likely familiar with. So you don't need to know what a DAF is. You can go in, you can contribute, you can set up. We talked about recurring. You can set up regular giving to your DAF fund, so you can really start to kind of save your money. And then, like any traditional DAF, there are investment options, so you can hopefully grow your impact over time. And we make that very simple. It's three very easy to understand options there. And then at the time of like moment of inspiration, like let's use the Texas flooding as an example. You're watching the news, you feel really compelled to give. You're going to log into your giving fund. We're going to make sure that you know who's responding. You can easily grant out. And then that's not just happening in times of crisis. Like our goal with this, you're talking about like what the nonprofits get out of this. There are $250 billion sitting in DAFs today. Like we want to get more money to the nonprofits who need it. So all of the great thing is that GoFundMe is a giving platform. We're not a financial institution or anything like that. And so we know how to get money out the door. And so we're providing a ton of moments for people to discover nonprofits. We want to make sure they see nonprofits in their local community because we know people like to give locally where they can see the impact. So there are all different ways that people can actually discover where to give through giving funds, which we think is some of the most important parts of it because we want to get the dollars out the door to a nonprofit.
That's
Krista,
amazing. Thank you
yeah,
so much.
Krista, on that, I'm curious. Well, one, I'd like to give a little bit of context around the DAFs, okay, so
Yeah,
people can
please.
understand that a little bit more. Um, and then I think that there's a really simple analogy that you touched on that I'd like to kind of recap a bit here.
Yeah.
Um, so, as I always thought about DAFs when I was even first starting my company here in Austin, for example, we have the Austin Community Foundation, and there's the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, and almost any city, insert city name, community foundation. And a lot of these have existed in the past when you think about what you had mentioned the 1%. What is it that like 1% of individuals
Yes.
have a
Have a
foundation?
DAF. Yep.
Generally, when and if a very wealthy person has some sort of big financial event that happens in their life, they might set up their own 501(c)(3), their own foundation. Or, right, and then the money sits in there, they make investments, and unless it's been changed, they have to grant out. So say they sell their company for $100 million, they decide to put $10 million in, they can then basically realize pretty significant tax advantages of making that donation into the foundation. But because it's made to a nonprofit, the foundation is the nonprofit, the money can sit there basically in a bank account, and they then can invest it in for profit or whatever types of things they want to do to grow that $10 million initial investment into the foundation. But they're required to grant out the equivalent of 5% over whatever the basically the balance over the past 3 years. And so I'm kind of getting a little bit technical here, right?
Yeah, and I think
So
if my math's correct, I think about like 20 to 25% of money sitting in DAFs actually gets granted out regularly. So it's still a
it's
fairly low
yes,
amount.
no, I follow you on that.
Mhm.
And then so that's on the foundation, but then on the DAF side, you have a variety of these community foundations solving, which is a very real. It's kind of was like the start of the market for this for wealthy individuals that didn't want to set up their own foundation and deal with all the paperwork, et cetera. It could be housed sort of as a bank account under the umbrella of a Silicon Valley Community Foundation or an Austin community foundation, et cetera. Where you guys, the puck is already going, so to speak, but you're like skating towards it, is this notion that millennials, especially or Gen Z, as you want to save it, are kind of thinking about this and saying, "Hey, I have, maybe a savings account. I might also have a checking account, obviously a checking account. I might have a 401(k) or other sorts of stuff. Why wouldn't I have a giving account?" And I think
Exactly.
traditionally giving has been very reactive, right? Or it's either there's some sort of notification or email or disaster, and you decide, hey, maybe now's the time to give. Or it's once a year because your friend says, hey, I'm going to go do this walk, to raise money for the local zoo. Come join me, and you decide to give. But now that mindset's changing, and you're basically
It is.
creating a technology platform to allow people that want to set up, essentially a giving savings account.
Yeah, I like that's a perfect description. I think what we've seen is we have research that says younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, are more likely to plan for their giving than older generations. So we're seeing this shift. At the same time, we're seeing the great wealth transfer kind of happen in
Yes.
tandem where we know millennials, especially, are going to inherit funds. And we know they want to plan for their giving. They don't know how. They might not be talking to the financial institutions of the world because they don't feel like they're a candidate for, talking to one of these financial institutions about their philanthropic giving. And traditionally, DAFs have mostly been run by these philanthropic organizations for tax benefits, as you've said. And so, like, our big BHAG is like, our big, hairy, audacious goal is like, but what if we could take this incredible technology, make it more accessible? So it's not 1% of people that are using this tool. It's upwards of like those 401k numbers that you called out, right? And what could the difference be for the nonprofit sector if more people were able to strategically plan their giving and give out to nonprofits? And giving has been stuck at about 2% of GDP for many decades. The recent Giving USA report came out, giving was actually up, but it's still hovering around that 2% of GDP. We actually feel like if we can give people the technology to be more generous, to discover the causes they care about, to connect with all these different ways of giving and sharing within their networks, we actually can raise that. And so that is like what we here at GoFundMe, that is like when we think of the future of what we want to do, that is it's not going to be an easy goal, but that is like our pie in
Mhm.
the sky. That's where we're headed.
Let me ask you something. So Charity Charge, we're set up as a public benefit corporation. We're a
Hmm.
for-profit company, right? I always
Yeah.
want to, um, um, create ways to do more with my employees and for them. Is there a feature, or would you guys consider developing a feature where, as the business owner, sort of like a 401k, where there could be a match, all of my employees could set up their own giving funds, but the company could match maybe what they contribute to help get even more dollars in?
I mean, it's a great idea. I'll have to tell our
All
chief
right.
technology officer.
I want to be the first. Our company will be the first user of it.
I love it. I mean,
Then we'll get even
there's
more
just
money,
so
right? The
much
corporations can help
opportunity. Yeah.
can help these individuals. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity. I think that's what like I think, for those of us who kind of watch the news, there's so much that can feel really daunting. But if we're going to look at the positive, is we truly believe that people are innately generous. They innately want to help. We see it every day on our platform of friends helping friends, neighbors helping neighbors, and then strangers helping strangers. And we believe if we can build even more powerful tools and technology to make that even easier, we will be able to, change the world for lack of sounding a little cheesy.
Pumped up. I love that you referenced the BHAG too.
I know. I'm sorry. I really
That's great.
it's big, hairy, audacious goal.
We have that. No, that's what we call it. We have one here as well. So
Yeah,
we
I'll do a
really
throwback since you said you spoke at Collaborative before.
yeah,
Scott Chisholm, who is our former CEO and co-founder, big fan of BHAG. So he's ingrained that in my head since day one.
amazing. That's awesome. No, I really love it. This what you all are doing is really incredible. I'm pumped up. I'm really excited for you and your organization. So we're about 50 minutes in. I want to ask you, is there anything that you haven't covered that you would like to share at this point? I know we've touched on a lot.
Man, we have touched on so much. I think what I will say to the nonprofit leaders listening is like, we know you are going through a lot. Whether that over the past 5 years, I feel like fundraising has just taken leaps and bounds in terms of changes and hardships affecting the industry, whether it was COVID and everybody having to pivot from live events to now some of the funding and legislative challenges that nonprofits are facing. And so I think I just want to say, like, we see you, we hear you. We know that we can never replace that. But our job is to build the technology to make your life easier and help you raise more money for the incredible causes and work that you all do.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time here. Grayson, you have any
No.
last questions? You're good. You had some good
Yes.
ones.
I loved the
I
tag
think you
team
did
today,
great.
Grayson. It
Yeah,
was
Awesome.
this is
Thank
great.
you.
Can
good.
I
This is
high five you
high five.
Oh
too?
yeah.
Do that there. Yeah, I just want to say, Krista, thank you so much for being with us today to represent GoFundMe and GoFundMe Pro. This is an awesome episode having you on the Charity Charge Show, and we look forward to growing our friendship and doing more to
Yes.
help nonprofits together.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Grayson. It's been great.
My pleasure. And thanks again to everyone that listened to this episode. We really appreciate your support.